Okay, welcome to part 3 of me inking Jinx. First, I did a line over, did the line work. Then I went and added the deep blacks. And on this third part, I put in my first level of, oh man, details. I've kicked the desk, I've kicked the board, I've kicked the camera. I just kicked crap all over the place. So, overall, I think this is a pretty decent foundation. It's taken me about an hour to do this, only because I am talking while I'm doing it. If I was just sitting here and drawing, I would probably have music or TV on in the background, and I would be done by now. But I'm kind of trying to talk through what I'm doing, as well as talk about the show while I'm doing it. So I'm going to make this next section pretty quick with my first level details. And then when I get to the last level of details, I'm probably not going to record that, because that's just me going over it, trying to, bring it out the way I want to. I talked about in the last, in part 2, that when I do Jinx, I don't draw for a look, I draw for a feeling. A lot of the characters I go for just a good illustration. With Jinx, I'm really focused on the feeling. How does she feel? What is going on in her head? And I'm hoping that right now there's this sense of anger and vengeance, in the drawing. And I've got the lineology, I've got the deep blacks, and now I go in and add the first level of details. And I usually work, left to right overall, because I'm right-handed. I don't want to smudge it. And then, but I'll skip around a little bit. But I usually, in the most part, try to start this way and work this way so that I don't mess up my inks. So if you see me, that's really the mentality behind what I'm doing. And while I'm doing it, I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to add color to emphasize those areas, or if I'm going to use a line. For a lot of the areas, I may come back with color and to add in some impact. But let's get into it. So this first section over here, just working over here, a lot of the stuff that's out, this is where I want the focal point to be. So a lot of the stuff over here and over here, I want it to look nice, but I don't want it to be, distracting from the rest of the picture. So there's some areas I'm probably just gonna, glance over with, some black lines that way. And I may pull out a smaller pen later and get some deeper lines going down that way. I talked about how I can vary the line with the brush all in the same stroke. I love that. I love the fact that you can do that with a brush pen. And because I love to paint, it really helps with my painting by doing that. Because when I get to painting, of course, that's done with a brush, and I don't have to worry about pushing down too hard with the paintbrush. So that's one of the perks of using a brush pen, if you're going to do painting as well. Some of the areas I honestly don't know what they're going to look like until I'm done. Like that is completely wrong. Oh my God. That's one of those instances where I should have turned the paper and done it the right way. Not a problem. But yeah, it should have followed the hair that way. Whew. I'll do this one right. That was a big mistake. So how do I fix a big mistake like that? Because that's not a little mistake. That's a pretty big mistake. But what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll put in some lines the right way. And what I'll do is I'll just add some deep blacks to the hair to kind of overshadow those mistakes. And again, since this is not the focal point, all it does really is just help me frame what I wanted to do in the first place. But I'm not happy with myself for such a big mistake, to be honest. That was a big one. So that's not too bad. And then once I don't want to go, once it dries, I'll kind of feather it out and add some detail. And then I'll come back in with a white pen and kind of add some streaks into it that way. So that it'll work out. It will work out. Not happy about it, but I can fix it. That's one of the cool things about artwork. You do something, you figure out ways to fix it at the same time because you make mistakes and you have to deal with them. So it's either start the piece over, which I'm not going to do because it's not ruined, or you figure out, ways to work around it. I've been talking about the show and what to expect from season 2. Again, this is one of those times where I wish I was like on Twitch. I do have a Twitch channel. I very rarely use it. I think I've used it maybe twice. But we could be talking about the show while I'm doing this. So I think I really need to set up my computer here in the studio. It's sitting right over there. I don't know why I didn't do that, but I do know why. I was trying to make this a live stream on Instagram, and the camera just wasn't cooperating. Things weren't coming out the way I wanted them to, and I gave up. That's what happened. I was a quitter for Instagram, which doesn't bother me because I'm not an Instagram fan anyway. Eventually, I won't be using Instagram at all. I think that's cool. Then I'll come over on this side and do a little bit of framing. I think I'm completely off Facebook as far as artwork is concerned. I've really not been happy with Facebook, to be honest. I know a lot of people aren't. I am one of them. And I just got sick and tired of it. So I just pulled all my artwork off of Facebook. I shouldn't say pulled the artwork off. I just stopped using it for art purposes. And actually, I'm happier because it's kind of a pain in the butt, and it's not one of the best platforms for what I do anyway, to be honest. So I don't mind that I don't use it anymore. And I do use YouTube, but I haven't been posting the way I should. My main format is my Patreon. That's where I really focus a lot of my attention is for my patrons. You know, I send them products, and that's where I do most of my posting. And I usually mail out, you know, gifts and prizes to them because I like that format a lot better. So, you know, it doesn't bother me that I am off some of these other platforms. And to be honest, eventually I plan to be off of Instagram in the near future. It's turning into something that isn't fun anymore. And I honestly don't think it has a long lifespan as far as artwork goes. My portfolio, my professional portfolio is not Instagram anyway. So when people are thinking about, you know, using me for jobs, I don't send them to my Instagram page. I send them to my professional portfolio page. So it's more for fun, and I use a lot of I don't have a huge following on Instagram, but I do get some work off of Instagram. You know, I get commissions off of it, so I'm not gonna totally knock it. But it's not like I make money primarily off of Instagram. And sometimes I'm wondering if the juice is worth the squeeze on that particular platform, just because it is a pain in the butt. And I think it was better before Facebook bought it. But now it's just another version of Facebook, right? I thought I was done with the deep blacks, but as I go into details, I find myself adding in more deep blacks. And one of the main reasons is to show contrast. So if I'm putting a lot of the deep blacks on the sides and leaving a lot open in the middle, then that will force the eye to go to the middle, which is my focus point anyway. One of the things, when I went back to art school a few years back, I would say 5-6 years ago, I forget whether it was 2016 or 17, I grew up drawing and painting, and I wanted to pursue professional art as a career, and I wound up actually going into engineering versus art. And now, as I end my engineering career, I'm focused back on art. But I didn't, you know, do tight work for the longest time. I would do sketching, you know, so I kept, you know, some level of proficiency, but not really a good working level. And when I decided to get back into it, you know, deep and hard, I had to go back to school. So I went to art school, and I went to CGMA online, Computer Graphics Master Academy, had some great instructors. I'm not finished with the program that I started there, but I've taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've taken like 5 or 7 classes. But the first few, my instructors, you know, they kept drilling to me, what's the focal point? What's the focal point? What's the focal point? And, you know, I was like, oh, it's this, it's that, it's the other. They're like, well, I can't tell by what you did, so you need to fix that. I was like, okay, I'll fix it. And, you know, there are different ways to highlight your focal point. And one of them is through contrast. And I could have done just the opposite. I could have put a lot of the deep blacks in the face and left the outsides kind of blah, blah. Or I could do what I'm doing now, where I'm putting a lot of the deep blacks out here and pushing, you know, toward the middle. But I think when you look at that, the way it's framed out, you are focused on the face, which is what I want. So I think that part is working pretty good. But focal point is very important, especially as you get into bigger and larger illustrations. And I also do 3D work, which is a little bit tricky because in 3D work, I use Blender, but when you render something out, everything's detailed. If you do it that way, I should say. But you can, because you're working in a 3D program, you can, you know, have so much that's detailed out that it kind of takes away from, well, what is the focal point? What do you want me to look at? And that's true. You have to be cognizant of that part, and learn how to, even in 3D, learn how to push out the focal point and using, you know, different techniques, whether it be lighting, whether it be mist, whether it be, you know, blurred out focus perspective type things. You know, there's different ways to do it. And that's been pretty cool. So I could add more deep blacks out here and up here, around here, but I think I am definitely going to use a little bit of color to on these sides here. And I think that'll make it look really cool, to be honest. Now I'm just kind of, oh yeah, I like the way that came out. I'm adding in some areas to try to create, you know, maybe a texture. A little, I don't want to say detail, but a little, what's the word? A little character. So this grenade is kind of the foreground. This grenade here is definitely faded out. It's not, you know, a present in the illustration. But this area over here, I think this grenade could actually add some nice emphasis to the illustration. And I think I can do it without necessarily taking away from the face. But indicating that, hey, this is bad mojo coming your way, baby. Bad mojo coming your way. punks jump up to get beat down. I don't want to do that there. I don't do that. I want to do that. Cast shadow. Metallic. I think that's kind of cool. And then I want to highlight the pull rings, and I'm going to use color on the face. I'm not going to add a lot more line work in the face. I want that to be some color. I am going to show that indication of light coming from above. By giving some depth to the upper eyelid there. And then I'm going to use color for that. I'm definitely going to use color for the nose. I think I've gone as deep as I want to on that underneath. I could color this part in black, but yeah, I think that would take away from the eyes, because there's some good focus here. And when I add in the color around the eyes, it'll really draw you into the eyes. The nose isn't really that important. It's a nose, so I don't want to draw any more attention to that. And then the teeth with the rings. I definitely want to add color around that, and draw that attention. And I'm going to throw some color over here. Maybe over here. Nope, I'm not. Maybe a dash of color over here. I may wind up doing, more blackout than color. And I think that'll be cool. Oh my God. I think, let me add a little depth underneath here. Just a little more depth and a little bit more depth under here. Give it a little bit more volume on the pull rings. Yeah, I like that better. Just makes it look a little bit more full, gives it a little bit more volume. Although that should be like that. And then the rest of it, here's another area where I want to make sure that I'm going thin. On that chin. And I think that's primarily it for inking. I may go back and, hit a few areas, but I think the last thing I'm going to do is throw down some marker and finish it out.